The hardest person to win back is the one who still loves you. Olivia Bennet stared at the diamond ring resting in her palm for several long seconds before placing it gently on the table between them. The busy restaurant around them faded into silence. Conversation stopped. Forks paused in midair. Even the soft music playing overhead seemed distant. Across from her sat Ryan Walker, the self-made millionaire who had spent the last 2 years becoming the center of her world. His eyes never left the ring. For the first time since she had known him, he looked completely unprepared. "Olivia," he said quietly, "please do not do this." Her chest tightened at the sound of his voice. She wanted to look away. She wanted to walk out before her courage disappeared. Instead, she forced herself to meet his gaze. "I love you," she whispered. Ryan's expression softened for a brief moment. Then she continued, "But I do not trust you." The words landed harder than she expected. She saw the pain in his eyes immediately. Not anger, not frustration. Pain. That somehow made everything worse. Olivia stood slowly from her chair. The ring remained on the table. "You kept too many things from me," she said. "Maybe you thought you were protecting me. Maybe you thought it did not matter. But it does." Ryan opened his mouth as if searching for an answer. None came. Because deep down, he knew she was right. There were parts of his life he had never shared. Parts he had convinced himself would only complicate things. Now those secrets stood between them. Olivia picked up her purse. Every step toward the exit felt heavier than the last. She did not look back when she pushed open the restaurant door and disappeared into the cool Boston evening. Ryan remained seated long after she left. The untouched ring sat in front of him beneath the warm restaurant lights. Most people would have accepted defeat. Most people would have convinced themselves it was over. Ryan Walker was not most people. Several minutes later, he finally stood. Instead of picking up the ring box, he reached into his pocket and removed a small silver key. He stared at it thoughtfully. Then a slow, determined smile appeared. The next morning, Olivia woke after a restless night. Her tiny apartment felt unusually quiet. She made coffee, checked her phone, and immediately regretted it. No messages from Ryan. No calls. No dramatic attempts to change her mind. Part of her felt relieved. Another part felt strangely disappointed. By late afternoon, she returned home from her shift at Harbor Street Diner and stopped abruptly outside her apartment door. Resting neatly on the welcome mat was a small black envelope. No stamp. No return address. Her name was written across the front in familiar handwriting. Olivia's pulse quickened. She carried the envelope inside and carefully opened it. A silver key slid onto the kitchen table. Attached to it was a simple white tag. Day 1. Beneath the tag sat a folded note. Olivia unfolded it slowly. "Dear Olivia, I know trust cannot be bought, demanded, or rushed. So I am not asking for any of those things. Instead, I am giving you a choice. This key opens a storage locker at South Harbor Station. Inside is the first truth I should have shared long ago. If you decide never to use it, I will understand. But if you do, then tomorrow another key will arrive. Ryan." Olivia stared at the letter, then at the key, then back at the letter again. Her heart told her to throw it away. Her curiosity told her something else. An hour later, she found herself standing outside South Harbor Station with the silver key clutched tightly in her hand. The locker number written on the tag matched a row near the back wall. She walked toward it slowly. The key slid smoothly into the lock. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she turned it. The metal door clicked open, and what she saw inside made her completely forget how to breathe. Inside the locker sat a battered cardboard box. Nothing about it looked valuable. There were no stacks of cash, no expensive watches, no signs of the wealth Ryan possessed today. Olivia slowly knelt and lifted the lid. Her eyes widened immediately. Inside were worn notebooks, faded receipts, an old employee badge, and several photographs. The first photograph showed a much younger Ryan standing beside a rusted sedan in a crowded parking lot. His clothes were worn. His smile looked forced. On the back, written in black ink, were 4 simple words. "My home for 6 months." Olivia stared at the picture. It did not match the image of the confident millionaire she knew. She reached for another photograph. This one showed Ryan mopping the floor of a convenience store late at night. Another showed him unloading delivery trucks before sunrise. Another showed him sitting alone at a small diner counter with textbooks spread across the table. Beneath the photographs rested a notebook labeled Year 21. Curiosity overcame hesitation. Olivia opened it. The pages contained handwritten entries. Most were short. Some described 18-hour workdays. Others listed expenses down to the last dollar. Every entry revealed a life built through sacrifice. One sentence caught her attention immediately. Today I worked 3 jobs and still worried about rent. But someday I will build something better. Olivia read the line twice, then a third time. For years, she had assumed Ryan came from privilege. He never corrected that assumption. He never told her these stories. Yet here they were, preserved inside an old locker hidden from the world. At the bottom of the box sat a sealed envelope. Her name was written across the front. Olivia carefully opened it. Inside was another letter. Dear Olivia, when people look at me today, they see success. They see the office towers, the interviews, and the money. They do not see this box. They do not see the years when I counted every dollar before buying dinner. I never showed you these things because I was ashamed of how much those years still affect me. That was my mistake. I should have trusted you with the whole story. Olivia lowered the letter. For the first time since returning the ring, she felt uncertainty replacing anger. Maybe she had not known Ryan as well as she thought. Maybe there were entire chapters of his life she had never been allowed to read. Her phone buzzed suddenly. A new message had arrived from an unknown number. She opened it cautiously. One sentence appeared on the screen. Check your mailbox tomorrow morning. No signature was needed. She already knew who sent it. Across Boston, Ryan sat alone inside his penthouse office overlooking the city lights. A large wooden table stood covered with silver keys. Dozens of them, each tagged with a different number. Day 2 rested nearest to him. His assistant had asked twice whether he planned to attend an important investor dinner that evening. He declined both times. None of it mattered right now. For the first time in years, Ryan cared more about honesty than appearances. He picked up the second key and attached a handwritten note. Then he paused. A framed photograph of Olivia sat on the corner of his desk. He looked at it for several seconds. Please open the next one, he whispered quietly. The following morning, Olivia stepped outside her apartment and immediately spotted another black envelope waiting in her mailbox. Her heart began racing before she even touched it. Inside was a second silver key. This one carried a tag marked Day 2. Alongside it was a small address she did not recognize. She told herself she should stop. She told herself opening these keys would only make things harder. Yet less than an hour later, she found herself standing outside an old storage building on the edge of the city. The address led to a narrow hallway lined with metal doors. She stopped in front of Unit 214. The silver key fit perfectly. Olivia took a slow breath and turned the lock. As the door rolled upward, she froze. The entire room was covered from floor to ceiling with something she never expected to see. The storage unit looked ordinary from the outside, but the moment the metal door lifted completely, Olivia felt her breath catch in her throat. The walls were covered with letters. Hundreds of them. Every inch of the room seemed filled with envelopes pinned carefully in neat rows from floor to ceiling. Some were yellowed with age. Others looked newer. Small handwritten dates appeared beneath many of them. For several seconds, she simply stood there staring. Then she noticed a wooden table positioned in the center of the room. On top sat a single envelope marked Day 3. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Dear Olivia, this room contains letters I never sent. Most were written during the hardest years of my life. Some were written to people who helped me. Some were written to people I disappointed. And some were written to myself when I needed a reason to keep going. I am showing you this because I want you to understand something. Success did not erase my fears. It only hid them better. Olivia slowly lowered the page and looked around the room again. Curiosity pulled her toward the nearest wall. She selected one envelope at random and carefully opened it. Inside was a letter written nearly 15 years earlier. The handwriting looked younger and less confident. Today I got rejected from another job interview. I smiled and thanked them anyway. Then I sat in my car for an hour wondering if I was chasing a dream that would never happen. Olivia opened another. The rent is due in 3 days. I have $82 left. But I am still here. I am still trying. She opened a third. One day, I want to build something that matters. Not because I want money. Because I want freedom. The words felt painfully honest. There was no image of the powerful businessman she knew. Only a young man struggling to believe in himself. As she continued reading, a pattern emerged. Ryan had never written these letters expecting anyone to see them. They were private conversations with his own doubts, fears, and hopes. The realization made them impossible to dismiss. By the time she finally left the storage unit, the sun was already beginning to set over Boston. Yet Ryan's words followed her all the way home. That night, she could not stop thinking about the room. She had spent 2 years believing she understood him. Now she was beginning to wonder how much of his story remained hidden. Across the city, Ryan stood near the large windows of his office watching the lights flicker on across the skyline. His phone remained silent. He had no idea whether Olivia had opened the third key. He had no idea whether she was angry, confused, or completely finished with him. Still, he refused to stop. Another silver key rested on his desk beside a black envelope. Day 4. He picked it up and turned it slowly between his fingers. This key protected something far more personal than the previous ones. For a moment, doubt crept into his mind. Then he remembered the look on Olivia's face when she returned the ring. Trust could only be rebuilt through truth, no matter how uncomfortable that truth became. The next morning, Olivia woke earlier than usual. Before leaving for work, she checked her mailbox. Another black envelope waited inside. Her pulse immediately quickened. Day 4. The key looked identical to the others except for a small handwritten note attached beneath it. This one contained only an address and 4 words. The place that changed everything. Olivia spent her entire shift distracted. She accidentally refilled the same coffee cup twice. She forgot an order. Even her manager noticed. By evening, curiosity had completely won. The address led her to an old brick building near the waterfront. The structure looked abandoned. Weathered paint peeled from the walls. Most of the windows were boarded up. She walked toward the entrance slowly. The silver key fit a rusted lock beside the door. As it clicked open, Olivia stepped inside and froze. Directly in front of her stood a small office preserved exactly as it had been years ago. And sitting in the center of the desk was a framed photograph of her father. Olivia felt the air leave her lungs as she stepped closer to the desk. The framed photograph was unmistakable. It showed her father standing beside a younger Ryan outside the very building where she now stood. For several seconds, she simply stared at the image, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Her father had passed away years earlier. Ryan had never once mentioned knowing him. Yet there they were together, smiling at the camera as if they had shared a history she knew nothing about. Her hands trembled as she picked up the photograph. Beneath it sat another envelope marked Day 4. Olivia opened it immediately. Dear Olivia, if you are reading this, you have already seen the photograph. Before you judge me, please let me explain. Your father changed my life long before I ever met you. The words sent a chill through her chest. She continued reading. 20 years ago, this building was the headquarters of a small construction company. I was 22 years old, working 3 jobs and desperately trying to start my first business. Everyone told me I would fail. Everyone except one person. Your father. Olivia lowered the letter slightly. Memories flooded back. Her father had always believed in helping people. He had spent his life encouraging others, even when his own circumstances were difficult. She continued reading. When nobody would take me seriously, your father gave me my first opportunity. He did not invest money. He invested trust. He let me work here. He introduced me to people who eventually became my first clients. Without him, there would be no Ryan Walker Industries. There would be no success story. There would only be another failed dream. Olivia looked around the old office. Dust covered most surfaces, but the room had clearly been preserved intentionally. A bookshelf still contained binders. Old blueprints rested inside filing cabinets. On one wall hung photographs of employees attending company events years earlier. She walked slowly across the room. Then something caught her eye. A second photograph. This one showed her father shaking hands with Ryan. Written beneath it were the words, "Believe in people before they believe in themselves." Tears filled Olivia's eyes. Those words sounded exactly like something her father would say. At the same moment, across Boston, Ryan sat inside his office watching the rain slide down the glass windows. He knew Olivia had probably reached the old building by now. The thought made his stomach tighten. Of all the keys, this one mattered most. Not because it revealed his past, because it revealed the connection he had hidden. A connection he should have shared from the beginning. His phone suddenly buzzed. The screen displayed a familiar name. Sophia Grant. Ryan frowned immediately. He had not spoken to his former fiancée in months. Reluctantly, he answered, "What do you want, Sophia?" Her voice remained calm. "I heard Olivia is learning the truth." Ryan's expression darkened. "Stay out of this." A brief silence followed. Then Sophia spoke again. The problem is that she still does not know everything. Ryan gripped the phone tighter. There is nothing else to tell. That is not true, Sophia replied quietly. You know exactly what I am talking about. The line went dead. Ryan stared at the screen. For the first time in days, genuine fear settled into his chest. Back inside the old office, Olivia finished reading the letter and noticed one final item resting inside the drawer of the desk. It was a leather-bound journal. The cover looked worn from years of use. Attached to it was a small silver key marked Day 5. Beneath the key sat a handwritten note from Ryan. This journal belonged to your father. There is something inside that neither of us expected to find. Olivia's heart began pounding. Slowly, she opened the journal to the bookmark page. The first sentence she saw made her entire body go still. Ryan Walker does not know it yet, but one day he will discover a secret connecting our families forever. Olivia stared at the journal for several long seconds before finally turning the page. Her father's familiar handwriting filled every line. The sight alone made her chest tighten. It felt like hearing his voice again after years of silence. She sat down in the old office chair and continued reading. The journal entry was dated almost 20 years earlier. Ryan Walker reminds me of myself when I was young. Too stubborn, too proud, too determined to quit. Most people see a struggling kid chasing impossible dreams. I see someone who only needs one opportunity. Olivia smiled faintly through gathering tears. That sounded exactly like her father. He had always looked for potential where others saw failure. She continued reading. Then her smile slowly disappeared. A later entry caught her attention. Today I reviewed documents connected to the Walker Family Corporation. There are decisions being made that concern me. If certain plans move forward, many hard-working families could suffer. I hope I am wrong. Olivia's heart skipped. She turned the page quickly. Another entry appeared several months later. I spoke with Ryan today. He still knows nothing about what is happening behind closed doors. Perhaps that is for the best. For now, Olivia frowned. The Walker Family Corporation. Ryan's family. The pieces were beginning to connect, but not completely. She kept reading. Then she reached the passage Ryan had marked. The words immediately made her blood run cold. Ryan Walker does not know it yet, but one day he will discover a secret connecting our families forever. If that day comes, I hope he understands that children should never carry responsibility for the mistakes of previous generations. Olivia lowered the journal slowly. The room felt strangely quiet. Her father clearly knew something. Something significant enough to record in his private journal. Something connected to Ryan's family. But what? Inside the back cover she discovered a folded piece of paper. The paper contained only a company name and a date. Walker Development Holdings. 15 years earlier. Nothing else. No explanation. No details. Just a clue. Across the city, Ryan sat in his office reviewing old corporate records. He had spent years investigating fragments of the same mystery. The difference was that Olivia was finally getting close to the truth. His phone vibrated again. Sophia. Ryan ignored the call. Seconds later, another message appeared. You should tell her before someone else does. Ryan leaned back heavily in his chair. Sophia's timing was never accidental. She knew exactly how much pressure he was under. Unfortunately, she was also right. There were still pieces of the story Olivia had not seen. And the longer he waited, the worse everything would become. Meanwhile, Olivia carefully placed the journal back inside the desk drawer. As she prepared to leave, she noticed something she had missed earlier. Attached beneath the drawer was a small metal lockbox. Hidden, almost invisible. Her pulse immediately quickened. She crouched beside the desk and examined it. The lockbox required a key. Her eyes drifted toward the silver key labeled Day 5. Slowly, she inserted it into the lock. A sharp click echoed through the room. Olivia opened the box. Inside sat a single file folder. Nothing more. Yet the moment she saw the name printed across the front, she felt the ground shift beneath her. Walker Development Holdings Internal Review. Her father's signature appeared. In the corner, beneath it sat another envelope addressed to her. Olivia opened it with shaking hands. Dear Olivia, if you have reached this point, then you are about to discover why I was afraid to tell you everything. Not because I did something wrong, because I knew how easy it would be for you to misunderstand the truth. The next pages contain documents connected to a decision made years before either of us met. A decision that affected your father, my family, and eventually both of our lives. Before you read them, there is one thing you need to know. I knew about this connection long before our first date. Olivia froze. Her eyes locked onto the final sentence. The room seemed to shrink around her. Ryan had known. From the very beginning. Then a photograph slipped from the folder and landed on the floor. Olivia bent down to pick it up. The image showed her father standing beside Ryan's father during a company meeting many years earlier. On the back, someone had written 6 words that changed everything. The deal that destroyed 2 families. Olivia stared at the photograph long after the room had grown dark around her. The deal that destroyed 2 families. The words echoed through her mind again and again. Her father had written about concern, warnings, and consequences. Ryan had admitted he knew there was a connection before they ever met. Yet none of the documents explained what had actually happened. Taking a deep breath, she opened the file folder and began reading. The pages contained reports, meeting notes, and internal reviews from Walker Development Holdings. Most were difficult to understand at first, filled with financial language and corporate terminology. Then she found a summary page prepared by her father. Suddenly, everything became clearer. 15 years earlier, Walker Development Holdings had launched an ambitious project that promised jobs, investment, and growth. Her father had been one of the senior consultants responsible for reviewing the proposal. According to his notes, he warned company leaders that the project relied on unrealistic projections. He recommended delaying the launch until certain risks could be addressed. Those recommendations were ignored. Olivia's pulse quickened as she turned another page. The project moved forward. Within 2 years, it collapsed. Investors lost money. Employees lost jobs. Small businesses connected to the project struggled. Families suffered financial setbacks. Among those affected was Olivia's own family. Her father spent years trying to repair the damage to his reputation despite having warned everyone from the beginning. But then she reached the final report. Her eyes widened. The approval signature did not belong to Ryan. It belonged to Ryan's father. Olivia slowly lowered the page. For weeks, she had imagined terrible possibilities. Yet the documents revealed something different. Ryan had not created the problem. He had inherited the consequences. Across the city, Ryan sat alone in his office. The next silver key rested on his desk beside a sealed envelope marked Day 6. He knew Olivia had enough information now to understand part of the truth. Unfortunately, she still did not know the most difficult part. His phone buzzed again. This time it was not Sophia. It was his investigator. Ryan answered immediately. "Tell me you found something." The investigator hesitated. "I found another document." Ryan closed his eyes. "And it changes everything." Meanwhile, Olivia continued reading through the file. Near the bottom, she found one final envelope hidden beneath the reports. The handwriting belonged to Ryan. She opened it carefully. "Dear Olivia, if you have read this far, then you know the project was approved by my father. You also know your father tried to stop it. What you do not know is why I spent years searching for answers after discovering what happened. I was not trying to protect my family. I was trying to understand yours." Olivia frowned. She continued reading. 6 years ago, I found your father's name while reviewing old corporate archives. At first, he was simply another person connected to a failed project. Then I learned what he had tried to do. The more I researched, the more I respected him. Eventually, I realized he had shown the courage my father lacked. That discovery changed me." Olivia felt tears gathering in her eyes. She remembered her father's integrity, his refusal to compromise his values. The realization that Ryan admired those same qualities touched something deep inside her. Then she reached the final sentence. "Dear Olivia, there is one reason I never told you any of this. Because before I met you, someone warned me that revealing the connection could destroy both our lives. That person was Sophia Grant." Olivia froze. Sophia, the same woman who kept appearing whenever the truth got close. The same woman who seemed to know more than anyone else. At that exact moment, her phone vibrated. An unknown number flashed across the screen. After a brief hesitation, she answered. "Hello." A familiar female voice responded immediately. "Olivia, we need to talk." Sophia paused for a moment before continuing. "Ryan told you part of the story, but he never told you what your father discovered right before he died." Olivia's heart nearly stopped. Then Sophia quietly added, "And I have the document that proves it." Olivia remained frozen with the phone pressed against her ear. Sophia's words echoed through the silence. "What your father discovered right before he died." For a moment, she could not speak. Her pulse thundered in her chest as she stared at the scattered documents covering the desk. "What are you talking about?" she finally asked. Sophia hesitated. "Not over the phone." Olivia immediately felt her frustration rise. "Then why call me at all?" "Because you deserve the truth," Sophia replied quietly. "And because Ryan is not the only person carrying secrets." The line went silent for several seconds. Then Sophia named a location. An old waterfront cafe that had been closed for years. "Tomorrow, 6 o'clock." Before Olivia could ask another question, the call ended. That night, sleep never came. She lay awake replaying everything she had learned during the past week. The keys, the letters, the photographs, her father's journal, Ryan's confession. Every answer seemed to create two new questions. By morning, she felt more exhausted than rested. Across Boston, Ryan stood inside his office reviewing the latest report from his investigator. The document contained information he had spent years trying to uncover. Unfortunately, it raised an even bigger question. A handwritten memo from 15 years earlier referenced a second agreement connected to the failed project, an agreement that never appeared in official company records. Ryan read the memo again, then again. Finally, he picked up his phone and called Olivia. The call went straight to voicemail. He tried a second time. Same result. A knot formed in his stomach. Something felt wrong. The following evening, Olivia arrived at the waterfront cafe just before sunset. The building sat near the harbor, overlooking rows of sailboats drifting gently across the water. The place had clearly been abandoned for years, yet one table near the entrance remained clean. Someone had prepared for this meeting. Sophia was already waiting. Olivia approached cautiously. "Start talking." Sophia nodded slowly. For the first time, she looked nothing like the confident woman Olivia remembered. She looked tired, regretful, almost nervous. Without a word, Sophia slid a manila folder across the table. Olivia opened it immediately. Inside sat copies of letters, contracts, and corporate correspondence. The first document appeared ordinary. The second looked familiar. The third made her freeze. It was a letter written by her father, dated only weeks before he passed away. Olivia's hands trembled as she began reading. If this letter is being read, then certain questions still remain unanswered. "I have spent years trying to understand what happened during the Walker development project. Recently, I discovered evidence suggesting that not everyone involved acted in bad faith." Olivia looked up sharply. "What does this mean?" Sophia folded her hands. "Keep reading." Olivia returned to the letter. One paragraph immediately stood out. "I no longer believe the project failed because of greed alone. I believe someone manipulated key information before final approval. If my suspicions are correct, neither Ryan Walker nor his father knew the full truth." Olivia felt the room spin slightly. "That is impossible." Sophia shook her head. "That is what I thought too." Olivia continued reading. The letter referenced missing financial projections, altered reports, and unexplained revisions made shortly before the project launched. Then she reached the final page. Her father had underlined one sentence twice. "Follow the missing consultant. He is the key to everything." Olivia lowered the letter slowly. Who was the consultant? Sophia looked away toward the harbor. "That is the problem." "What problem?" "Nobody knows." The answer only deepened Olivia's confusion. Before she could ask another question, Sophia pulled one final document from the folder. It was a photograph. The image showed several executives standing together at a company event 15 years earlier. Olivia immediately recognized her father. She recognized Ryan's father too. Then her eyes moved toward a man standing in the background. A man whose face had been deliberately marked with a black circle. "Who is that?" Olivia whispered. Sophia's expression grew serious. "That is the consultant your father spent years investigating." Olivia stared at the photograph. Then she noticed something written on the back. 3 words. "Still alive today." And suddenly, for the first time, Olivia realized the story was far from over. Olivia left the waterfront cafe carrying the photograph as if it were made of glass. The image felt heavier than all the documents she had read during the past week. A consultant nobody could identify. A man connected to the project that changed both families forever. A man her father had spent years investigating. And according to the note on the back, he was still alive. The drive home passed in a blur. By the time she reached her apartment, the city lights had already begun reflecting across the harbor. She spread the photograph, her father's letter, and the corporate records across her kitchen table. Then she noticed something she had missed earlier. In the corner of the photograph sat a date stamp. The company event had taken place only 3 months before Ryan met her for the first time. Olivia stared at it. If Ryan had been researching her father's past, then he might know something about this photograph. Across Boston, Ryan sat inside his office reviewing the investigator's latest report. The file contained only 2 pages, yet those pages had kept him awake all night. His phone rang. This time it was Olivia. He answered immediately. Olivia. Her voice was calm, but he could hear the tension beneath it. We need to talk. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. I agree. An hour later, they met at a quiet park overlooking the Charles River. The evening air felt cool and still. For a moment, neither spoke. Olivia reached into her bag and placed the photograph on the bench between them. Ryan's expression changed instantly. He recognized it. Where did you get this? Olivia ignored the question. Who is he? Ryan looked down at the image. I do not know. That is not good enough anymore. Ryan nodded slowly. I know. He leaned forward and rested his elbows on his knees. 5 years ago, I found references to him in company records. Every document stopped at the same place. No name. No employee file. No contract history. It was like he vanished. Olivia studied his face carefully. For the first time, he looked genuinely frustrated rather than defensive. Then why keep investigating? Ryan answered without hesitation. Because your father did. The words caught her off guard. Ryan continued. Your father believed the project failed because information had been altered before final approval. He spent years trying to prove it. After I learned that, I started looking too. Olivia looked away toward the river. Part of her wanted to stay angry. It was becoming increasingly difficult. Before she could respond, Ryan handed her a small black envelope. Day 8. Her heart skipped. I almost did not send this one, he admitted quietly. Olivia opened the envelope. Inside was another silver key. Attached to it was a handwritten tag. Key 364. She frowned. 364? Ryan nodded. Because we are near the end now. Olivia looked back at him. Near the end of what? His expression darkened. The truth. Later that night, she followed the address attached to the key. It led to a private records facility on the outskirts of the city. After showing identification to a security clerk, she was escorted to a small archive room. Waiting on the table was a locked metal case. The silver. He opened it immediately. Inside sat a single file and a sealed envelope from Ryan. Olivia opened the letter first. Dear Olivia, if you are reading this, then you are about to learn the one thing I hoped was not true. Everything inside this case came from the investigator I hired 6 years ago. He recently uncovered a connection nobody expected. Olivia's pulse quickened. She opened the file. The first pages contained old corporate records. The next pages contained photographs. Then she reached the final document. Her eyes widened. It was a consultant agreement. For the first time, the mysterious man's name appeared in writing. Olivia read it twice to make sure she was not mistaken. Then her heart nearly stopped when she saw a second name listed beneath it. Sophia Grant. Not as a witness. Not as an observer. As a direct relative. And suddenly Olivia understood why Sophia had known so much from the very beginning. Olivia sat alone in the archive room long after midnight, staring at the document that linked Sophia Grant to the mysterious consultant her father had spent years investigating. Nothing made sense anymore. Sophia had guided her toward the truth. Sophia had warned her repeatedly. Yet Sophia's own family appeared connected to the very secret hidden at the center of everything. By sunrise, Olivia knew there was only one thing left to do. She needed answers from all of them. That afternoon, she sent 2 messages. One to Ryan, one to Sophia. The meeting took place at the same old office where her journey through the keys had begun. The room felt strangely familiar now. The preserved desk, the faded photographs, the lingering presence of history. Ryan arrived first. Sophia entered several minutes later. Neither looked surprised to see the other. Olivia placed the consultant agreement on the desk between them. No more secrets, she said firmly. Everything. Right now. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then Sophia finally exhaled. The consultant was my uncle. Ryan closed his eyes briefly. Even after seeing the documents, hearing the words spoken aloud felt different. Sophia continued. Years ago, he worked as an outside advisor during the project. He manipulated financial projections to secure additional contracts. He made changes without authorization. By the time anyone discovered the truth, the damage was already done. Olivia stared at her. And you knew? Sophia shook her head immediately. Not then. I only discovered the connection after my uncle passed away and I inherited several boxes of old records. She looked down at the floor. At first I refused to believe it. Then I found your father's letters. Olivia's heart skipped. My father's letters? Sophia nodded. He spent years trying to uncover what happened. He never stopped searching for answers. Ryan slowly stepped forward. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Sophia laughed softly, though there was sadness in it. Because I was ashamed. Because I spent years blaming your family for everything. Then I discovered my own family was connected to the truth. Silence settled over the room. For the first time, Olivia saw not a rival, but another person carrying the weight of the past. Sophia reached into her bag and removed one final envelope. This belonged to your father. Olivia carefully accepted it. Her hands trembled as she opened the letter. The familiar handwriting immediately brought tears to her eyes. If you are reading this, then the truth has finally surfaced. Remember something important. The purpose of truth is not revenge. It is understanding. Mistakes were made. Some were intentional, some were not. But children should never inherit the guilt of their parents. Olivia's vision blurred. She continued reading. Ryan Walker is not responsible for the choices made before him. Judge him only by the choices he makes himself. The room became completely silent. Slowly, Olivia lowered the letter. Every key, every photograph, every confession, every painful revelation had led to this moment. She turned toward Ryan. For months, she had focused on what he hid. Now she saw everything he had chosen to reveal. The truth about his struggles. The truth about her father. The truth about his fears. He had never stopped moving toward honesty, even when honesty risked losing her forever. Ryan looked at her quietly. I never expected forgiveness. Olivia smiled. Through tears. Good. Because that is not what this is. He frowned slightly. Then what is it? She stepped closer. It is trust. For the first time since she returned the ring, genuine hope appeared in his eyes. Several months later, spring arrived in Boston. Harbor Street Diner buzzed with customers enjoying the warm weather. Olivia finished her shift and stepped outside. Ryan waited across the street, smiling. No secrets remained between them. No unanswered questions. Just two people who had survived a complicated journey and emerged stronger because of it. As they walked together along the harbor, Olivia reached into her purse and pulled out the very first silver key. Ryan laughed softly when he saw it. You kept it. Olivia squeezed his hand. Of course. She looked out across the water, then back at him. It opened more than a locker. Ryan smiled. What did it open? Olivia leaned closer and answered without hesitation. The truth. And for the first time in a very long time, the future felt brighter than the past.